Good evening, everybody. I know I'm back third time today. I really do need to get alive. Do you know something? There's not often when a piece is written so well that it makes you change your mind about something. And as you all, those of you that follow me and those of you that know, will know that last season I was all for giving Brendan longer. Thinking he was the man to take us forward. It was just a blip. And then after sort of everything that's happened, and the first few games and the results and some of the decisions that were made, I was very much had swapped from that to time for him to go, maybe. But, and I don't know whether you've read it or not. If you haven't, we're going to go through it tonight. Please do subscribe to The Athletic. The Leicester correspondent is Rob Tanner, a name most of us Leicester fans obviously know. And I read that and I thought, do you know what? He could be right here. And I have had to go away and think about it. But hopefully he's got some answers as to what is wrong at Leicester City. Please give us a subscribe. It's Leicester Till I Die TV. Good evening.
It's time! Strap yourself in, because we're set up, switched on, and ready to go.
You are watching and listening to Chris and Leicester Till I Die TV on YouTube and your favourite podcasts. Till I Die TV, your first choice for everything Leicester City. Tune in and join in now.
And now, here's your host.
All right, Chris.
All right, everybody, and say good evening to Rob. How the devil are you, sir?
Good evening. Yes, I'm very good, thank you. Refreshed after my little trip to London for the Chelsea game. So, fire away.
I mean, as I said to everybody, if you haven't subscribed to The Athletic, please do so. It is a great read, and you can get daily updates and everything. And I subscribe just for the Leicester one, to be honest with you, and you do write some good stuff. You know what you're talking about, and there's not many journalists, and there's been a lot written about Leicester, but this did make me sit and stop and think about things. You said there, that it's not a camper, it's not a crisis yet, because we are only still in the start of the season, and 4 games now, and probably 2 of those games, Arsenal and Chelsea, we probably, even if we were back a couple of seasons, we wouldn't have expected to get much from those 2 anyway. But you said it has got the ingredients to possibly become a crisis.
Yeah. There are a lot of concerns. I actually thought they didn't play too badly at Chelsea. I thought there was some encouraging signs, but they just had those defensive lapses, which unfortunately are becoming all too common at the moment. It's a recurring theme where they're all right in a game. They look like they're dominating a game, and then they have these defensive lapses, and it's costing them. And it was the same at Chelsea. So that is a worry. But there's lots of factors going on at the moment, and it's probably something that's been going on for probably about 18 months or so, really. In terms, the recruitment hasn't been what it used to be. The recruitment was always at the heart of what Leicester used to do, the model of selling one asset, reinvesting that money and strengthening in other areas. That didn't happen last summer. They had a net spend of 55 million, which is the highest in the club's history. And then Brendan said that all those recruits were backup players, and 3 of them we know are available to be sold on again. So something went badly wrong last summer, and Leicester are a club with their model. If you want to challenge the big six, I mean, they're a moving target. Financially, they're miles away from Leicester in terms of revenue. So you've got to be spot on in terms of how you use your resources, and they didn't do that last summer. And because a recruitment guy once said to me about Leicester, he said, "Look, you've got to get it right, and you can't guarantee you'll always get it right. Sometimes they'll get it wrong, but when you get it wrong, there's not the money to go and put it right. Like Chelsea spent 200 million now. When Fofana goes through, that'll be 200 million this summer. Leicester are nowhere near that level." So it's always a moving target to try and chase these big six clubs, and so you can't afford to get it wrong too many times. They got it wrong last summer. They can't afford to get it wrong this summer.
But I mean, it's easy to. Rodgers is the easy target. Let's be honest with you. I kind of think in a way he was almost hung out to dry a little bit. I mean, you look at our squad, and we've got more players that can actually register for the Premier League. So yes, we do have to move on because we can't afford to be in the position like Barcelona, where we've got a load of players that we can't actually, or we register those players, and then we've still got a load that are unregistered, sat there being paid to do nothing. Or I also don't want to be a Leeds United where we risk everything on getting back into Europe, failing to do it, and we know what happened to Leeds until recent. But if only somebody had come out from the club, because I do feel Brendan was sort of asked the question, and he said, "We've got to sell before we can buy." And to me, that was like putting a big fire sale notice up outside the ground. Would it not have been better for, whether it be Susan Whelan, I believe we've got a press officer, for one of them to actually come out and put something on the website explaining the situation?
Yes. Yeah, I can totally understand what you're saying, and I'm sure there's loads of Leicester fans saying the same thing right now, or thinking the same thing right now. That's never been how Leicester City have worked. The manager, I mean, it's my 14th season covering Leicester. And in all that time, I can't. Well, obviously, I started under Milan Mandaric, and he was great because I could just phone him, and literally would pick up and tell me what was going on and give me a quote and what have you. But since King Power came in, they've got a different model of how they work with the media, and it's based on how their heritage, their culture in Thailand, where they're never really questioned. And if they're asked any questions, they're wondering why we're being asked this question. So the way they deal with the media is very, very different. And normally, and in fact, all the time since they come in that I can recall, the only spokesman at the club is the manager. He's the only one that will speak. Players, you can stop players, but obviously they don't know the inner workings of the football club. They're very insular players, but it's always been the manager. So I've always said it would be great to hear from the hierarchy a little bit more. I genuinely think, John Rudkin could do something. The only time, in fact, I think I can remember Susan or John speaking is when there's been an appointment of a new manager, and they've sat next to him at the unveiling, but they haven't really done that the last couple of times as well. So, and I think since the sad passing of Vichai as well, I think Top has taken his father's stance as well, that he'll speak he'll do the start the season column in the program, and he'll speak at the end of season dinner, and he might speak in Thailand when they do a presentation to the shareholders, and that's it. So I don't think Leicester fans should hold their breath, really. I don't, actions speak louder than words, and I think the owners have more than proved over the years that their intentions are genuine, honest. They've got the club's best interests at heart, and the community's best interests at heart. I always say to Leicester fans, it's like winning the lottery with the owners. You got foreign owners in English football, and so many of them are questionable. They really are some dodgy ownerships going on in the game, and you've got these owners and just feel blessed because they're fantastic in what they do. I mean, that doesn't mean they can't be questioned, and we'd love to put those questions to them, but that's what press officers are for. So we use those instead.
I think, and I totally agree with you. And in top we trust, as they say, and I think because it's gone every season, it's gone reasonably well under the owners. I think this is why we're surprised when we see things like, we've agreed to a head of recruitment that doesn't come in until the transfer window's over. We've got a set piece coach that's coming in. We thought that's what Colo Torre did, but obviously not. But who's got visa problems, and it's just these sort of things. Everything kind of on its own would, but when you put everything together, it's kind of like, what is going on?
Yeah. I mean, Martin Glover was a difficult situation because obviously they earmarked him as the guy that they wanted to come in and head up the recruitment for this summer. And Southampton obviously had this clause in his contract, so they placed him on gardening leave, and it just hasn't been possible. It's been another complication to the summer. He won't be able to start work now till September the 1st, and it's not the first time I've come across a gardening leave contract clause like that as well. So I mean, I've seen it in a number of managerial contracts. So that's made it really difficult. So that meant that John Rookin and Brendan himself have had to be a little bit more hands-on. But as we all know, until they get players out, until they've moved players on, they haven't been able to do any transfer business anyway. So it's a bit of a moot point having a head of recruitment coming in because there's been no recruitment going on. They need to move players out. I mean, it would have helped. Obviously, it would help the situation to have Martin in. To try and get some of these players on. But the problem is a lot of these players that they want to move on, the fringe players, they're of a certain level. I mean, you're not going to be able to sell them on to bigger clubs because, they're not of that level. Therefore, it's clubs below your level that are probably going to be in the market for them. But COVID has wiped out a lot of the finances in those sort of clubs.
Including ours, in fairness.
Yes, exactly. So, there's no buyers for them. Certainly not at the asking prices that Leicester have been looking for. So, it's like I described it as a frozen window. The whole transfer window has been absolutely frozen. And for Leicester, and until they started to move some of those players on, I think the model for them, what they wanted to do and what they expected to do, which going back to what I said at the start about the model is always to move on one asset and then reinvest that money. They assumed Tielemans would be the asset they would move on. But there's been no takers.
No.
And it's been really strange because we've all known for nearly 2 years now that Yuri's been available or willing to go on. He's looking elsewhere. But I think Leicester's asking price for him has put so many of them off, and probably his own personal terms as well from his agent have put so many clubs off that there hasn't been any takers. And still now we're into the last week of the window, and there's still no takers for him. And he's a great player. He makes Leicester tick. He plays through the lines. What I always say, and I said it in the article that you mentioned at the start, is that every player has a certain level, and the reason they don't go beyond that level is because there's always an attribute in their game that's probably missing. And I always think with Yuri, it's a bit of that physicality. I mean, we saw it against Roma, Pellegrini. I highlighted it in another article that I did, that every time in the first leg, every time Leicester got the ball, Pellegrini was on Yuri, sat on Yuri, because Yuri was playing in that deep position and he was the playmaker. So they thought, if we stop Yuri, then we stop Leicester. And that was their game plan, and it worked perfectly. And then whenever Roma got the ball, Pellegrini was just bursting past Yuri, and Yuri didn't have the athleticism to catch him, to keep up with him. And I think that is the reason why clubs are holding it back a little bit on Yuri, because in possession, he's a wonderful player, Matt. He's the guy that scored the winning goal in the FA Cup final. he will ever be, instilled in Leicester City folklore. But I just think there's a little attribute of his game at the moment that he needs to work on to go to that next level. But his agents are probably telling him, you are at that level now. And I think that's a little bit of a falsehood. So
I think had we finished fifth or sixth again, I think there would have been a lot more teams queuing up for him. But I think because Leicester didn't have the best season going, that I think, that maybe that's why teams, and he was asked to play slightly differently last season. And what I said this season was that I was going to start and give everybody a clean sheet, even Vestergaard, but
I think he should as well. I don't think he's a bad defender. I just think he's a different fit.
He came into a bad problem at Leicester with our defence. Let's be honest, and he. I know it was only Stockport, but they only had 4 shots at us, and every time I looked at the graphic that was following the match on, it was Vestergaard taking the ball out. But with Tielemans, I mean, the way he's acted, at least he still plays. You could argue he's not had some good games, but he was our man of the match against Chelsea. That did it for Leicester till I die. So he's still being professional about it, unlike he who must not be named anymore. But do you think? I mean, if we sell him now, who we're going to get in? That's the problem. But we'll come on to that sort of maybe later. But do you think he would do a Harry Maguire and sign an extension with loads of clauses in it, just so that we can get some money?
I tell you that Maguire is an interesting one because the fans sing that song about him, and they have a certain perception about Harry Maguire. But I can't think in the last few years of a player that's had Leicester's interests more.
I didn't know until you told me last time you were on here, but I didn't know about it, and I've got total respect for the guy now.
Because the reason being, because obviously he knew, and everybody knew, that Manchester United wanted him. Now, if you sort of put that next to the Wesley Fofana situation, now Wesley would have been, as he has, not turning up for games, for training, not being involved in games, pushing hard for the move. Maguire didn't. In fact, he signed a new contract to make sure that Leicester had, obviously he would have got financial incentives as well. He would have got a signing on fee and increased wages for a year. But he knew Manchester United was serious about signing him, and it protected Leicester. But so they got the fee they got, £80 million. And all that time as well, he was a model pro. So I really wish Leicester fans would be a little bit more not grateful, but appreciative a little bit of Harry Maguire, of Harry Maguire. Now we've got the Wesley Fofana situation, we've got the Yuri Tielemans situation, and they're in stark contrast to how Harry conducted himself. I'm not saying Yuri hasn't conducted himself well, because for everyone I speak to say, it's like nothing else is going on. He's just focused on what he's doing. I have to say, I don't think his performances have been brilliant. I think he does look like a player that's distracted or looking elsewhere. I think certainly the first 20 minutes at Chelsea, he wasn't himself. I think he got better as the game wore on, but he hasn't been at those levels for a while, and that's probably because he's distracted and he looking elsewhere. But you don't want the situation like Fofana at the moment. It has been. I spoke to Johnny Evans after the Southampton game, and he said played it down, and he said no. He said it's not a problem for me. I'm not a distraction for me. And from what I understand, the players can understand Fofana being distracted and wanting the move to Chelsea. It's a chance for him to go and play Champions League football or whatever. What they don't like is the behaviour. What they don't want is players not turning up for training, because they're all in it together. They're professionals, and that's what they're paid to do. Yeah, and if somebody's stepping out of that, and this is one of my other concerns, is that we've lost Kasper Schmeichel now. Wes Morgan's moved on. Christian Fuchs has moved on. These like really strong, experienced characters in the dressing room, and they've always had at Leicester a management level inside the changing rooms. I remember Nigel Pearson telling me this, that they never went into the changing rooms at the training ground. They left it to the management structure, the inner core of the squad. And it used to be Casper, Wes, Andy King, Jamie Vardy was in there. Christian Fuchs obviously came in as well. And if there was any disciplining to be done, they would do it. Fines, they would set the fines, not the manager, not the it was all in-house, the players. And obviously you've lost Wes, Casper and Christian now, and I know Johnny's going to be a great leader. He's such an inspirational character in many ways. Johnny's so level-headed. He will be a good captain. Obviously Michael Brighton stepped up now, but I can't see too many other leaders around.
Oh, this is something that comes up an awful lot.
I'm worried about that now a little bit. I mean, I love Kieran Dewsbury. I met him for an interview a week or so ago, and I think he will grow. He's got the club at heart. Yeah. And when sometimes your players say that, oh, I love this club and all this, and you go, yeah, I'm sure you do. You love the wage, you love it's that and the other, but you don't really love the club. You get the impression with Kieran Dewsbury, oh, he does love the club. Yeah,
I mean, this is the thing with the likes of Fofana and Tielemans. They're not Leicester people, so I don't expect them to have that sort of loyalty to the club that, say, like an Andy King or a Kieran Dewsbury Hall. Although even Andy King wasn't, we got him from Chelsea, I believe. But I think, what people are saying is, this is his job. This is what you paid to. I mean, how the hell he could have even faced teammates when he didn't cheer when Maddison scored. I mean, you don't go into the office. It's like a post-Christmas party, isn't it? But
and this is what I'm saying is his behaviour hasn't been exemplary at all. But should we be surprised? Because when Leicester signed him from Saint Etienne, he went to L'Équipe and did an interview. He was very vocal about it. He talked about how he had to protect his family, and because he comes from quite an impoverished part of Marseille, and it is life-changing money to them. So Chelsea's come along, and obviously it's even more money now. I mean, he's already in a position to look after his family, but this takes him to another level. So I'm not really surprised, to be honest.
Oh no, and I think Chelsea,
I don't think Leicester fans should be either.
No, I don't think. I don't. A lot of people sort of said, "Yeah, well, look, he did it when he came to us." And I think Chelsea, they're saying, "Oh, he signed this 6-year contract, whatever it is," and it's like, "Yeah, all right. In a couple of years' time, if PSG come knocking, then see what he's like."
He'll come around again. Around Madrid. I mean, because I think he's at the level. I think he is ultimately at that level. He will be one of the top defenders, as long as he can control that part of his temperament. I believe he's a very popular member of the squad from what people tell me. He's very jovial. I mean, I think he embraced the old little Wes, big Wes thing that Jamie Vardy said to him on the first day that he was at the club. I said, I'm calling you little Wes. I think he embraced all that and was involved, the banter, and his English is a lot better than he lets on, because a lot of the time these players say, or they get the media staff to say that their English isn't good enough for an interview or whatever, but they can make themselves heard and understood, and there's no issues there really. So I think he was very popular, but obviously his head was turned as soon as Chelsea came in.
Yeah. And typical Ant here, saying he's had a few of those fun mornings after. I don't wish to know that about your Christmas. Actually, you're a teacher. What sort of Christmas parties do you have? I think we better move on. I think you make the point as well, and it is a very good point, is that the expectations have grown at the club because we have done so well recently. And, fans, we're fickle. You look up fans in the dictionary and it says fickle, and we've almost been a victim of our own success.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, you see the rise of Leicester City has been so meteoric. It's been incredible. As I said, I've been covering them for 14 years now. And when I first started, it was the first season back in the Championship from League One, the one that culminated in Jan Kermorgant's Penenka at Cardiff. And
don't remind me.
Yeah, exactly. So the highs and lows since then have been incredible. But since 2015-16, it's just been astonishing. I mean, I honestly, I don't think fans of other clubs and certainly I don't think people in my industry appreciate it to its full extent. How this has been such an incredible story, such an incredible ride for Leicester City, for a provincial club like Leicester, to do what they've done, achieve what they've achieved in the last 6-7 years. It's just been extraordinary. I don't think I'll ever cover anything like it in my lifetime again.
I don't think.
My brother-in-law is a Liverpool season ticket holder, and I sometimes have to explain to him because he's used to success, and he now equates Leicester to be on a similar level. And I said, you don't understand. You don't understand where this club's come from in such a short space of time, and what they've been able to achieve on a fraction of the budget that other clubs have been dealing with. It's remarkable. And I think sometimes Leicester fans
it happening again.
No, but I just think Leicester fans just need to pause sometimes and think, "Wow, what's going on? This is the halcyon years. This is the golden days."
Yeah. Coming on to Brendan Rodgers, because you asked the question, sort of, what is Rodgers thinking in your article? And like I said, keep saying to people, please do subscribe to The Athletic and check out Rob's articles. They are really, really good. I mean, I always say, and, like the likes of Pep and, the likes of Jurgen, could they do it managing Rochdale on a wet Wednesday in November? And I suppose, I mean, this is now where he will earn his money.
Absolutely. I totally agree, because he's always said that he's a coach that is better at coaching than anything else, and I totally agree with him. I think he's a wonderful coach. I think sometimes the player recruitment side of his history as a manager, there's question marks around that, but I think he's a good coach, and he's always said that he's best at developing players regardless of their age. So whether they're youth or whether they're older, like Jamie Vardy, he thinks he can develop them and improve them. Well, he might have to do that. Well, he's going to have to do that now, because there's a number of those players in that squad that he's basically thrown under the bus. He's said that they're not good enough, or they think they're better than they actually are. Well, he's going to have to get them on side and develop them and improve them, because I know the Fofana deal is going to go through, and he's going to have some money to spend, and there's going to be some targets that he's going to go for. Certainly at centre-back, he wants a right winger. But if time is short, and if he doesn't get those players in, then he's going to have to deal with the players he's got. And he's going to have to win them all over, get them back on side, and develop them. And that is not going to be easy.
It isn't. It's a bit like the Fofana if he was staying, and going back and playing again after the way he's been acting. I sometimes, I mean, again, a lot of this is said by Rodgers, is he's always covering his own back. And I do feel that, yes, maybe he should have been told, if he wasn't, that, at the start of the summer, that there was no money because he was, doing a lot during the summer. And we discussed earlier about whether he was hung out to dry or not. But sometimes I do think, he doesn't necessarily think, well, I don't know, because he does seem to think about what he says in interviews.
Yeah.
But things, he comes out and says, like, we were too tired against Brentford, but we only used one sub. And then he was saying, like, experience isn't, we haven't got an experienced squad, and yet we've got either the oldest or the second oldest squad at the moment in the league, and we lost to Southampton. We've had the youngest squad in the past 10 seasons in the Premier League. He's got to be careful with what he says, because these things will come back and bite him on the bottom, as they say.
Well, let me go back to your first point, was about he wasn't aware of the situation this summer. Now, I think he was. I think that the club were adamant that they had to get players out, because there's no way a club like Leicester can carry 28 senior players, some of them on multi-million-pound contracts a year, and they can't play because there's no place for them in the squad. We had that with Papi Mendy last year. So I think he was very much aware that they had to move some players on to create space, not just create space, but create finances as well, but to create space, more importantly, for new arrivals. Now, I think there was an expectation that there was a number of players that would come in, so that would be easy to move on. I think they thought Yuri Tielemans would definitely go. I think they thought there would be buyers for Charles Sionsu. I think they thought a number of these players they would be interested in. But as I explained earlier, that middle market sort of disappeared post-COVID. And there was no interest in Yuri. I think the demands of the finances for that deal has put a number of clubs off. So he came back for the first training session of pre-season, and suddenly he hasn't moved any players on. They haven't moved any players on, and it hasn't been helped with the fact there's no head of recruitment that's doing that work. It's been left to John Rudkin, who's got other things to do as well. So that's when it changed for him. But the situation shouldn't have changed. That he must have been aware that he had to get players out before they could bring players in. But when he came back, none of those players have been moved on. That's when it changed. And that's when I think, the situation like Ademola Lookman, they wanted he wanted Ademola Lookman for £14 million. I mean, £14 million in the modern market is a bargain, isn't it, really? Yeah. I mean, Lookman's a good player. He's not will beater, but he's a good player to have around your squad because he can do a number of roles. Yeah. And he suddenly couldn't do that. And they've missed out now. And this is the problem they've found. They're so late in the window. A lot of the targets they've spent months researching and looking into, they've moved on to other clubs, and they've missed out on them. Yeah, they've missed out on them now. So now, with a few days to go, with Fofana going, the problem they've got is finding those replacements to come in and those potential players to come in, and it will not be cheap.
And I'm dreading the fact that we could see another 14-second moment happening at the end of.
God, no! Hope not.
We're playing on deadline day night. How does the FA justify that?
Rules are rules, they all say. But this is the thing about Leicester's history in this sort of market. In the past, the way they've played things, they've always known that something is going to happen. They didn't know with Fofana. I mean, Mahrez, we knew the Mahrez situation when Man City was lingering on. They managed to get him to stay for 6 months. As I said, Maguire they knew for 12 months before he went on. So they had plenty of time to prepare for, his departure. And Kante, N'Golo Kante, that was totally out of the blue because obviously they had the buyout clause, and Chelsea triggered that, and that was it. It was done. The Danny Drinkwater one. That went right to the wire, and Danny was pushing hard for that move. And it didn't particularly work out very well for him, did it? And it didn't work out very well for Leicester ultimately. So there's a lesson to be learnt there. So, they genuinely know that there is a possibility if somebody can move on, and they have a succession plan. Fofana, they didn't plan on him going this summer. Yeah, they planned on him going next summer. So it's really been a bit of a curveball. As I said at the start, they thought Tielemans was going to be the guy that was going to go.
But talking of Tielemans, and like I said, Rodgers can sometimes shoot himself in the foot with what he says. Taking this out of or off Leicestershire Live today, Rodgers has said, and this is why he's not played Soyuncu, who is a left-footed, left-sided player, but he plays a right-footed, right-sided player, Amarte, in that role. Obviously hasn't worked for a couple of games, but he's stuck with it. And he has said, Rodgers has said that he's been selecting the players who are committed to the club, with Soyuncu a candidate to leave in this transfer window after entering the final 12 months of his contract. And yet Tielemans has been starting, apart from one game, every single week. What's his commitment to the club? Won't sign a new contract, wants to leave. I mean, I sometimes wonder if he is full of a bit of the old BS, to be honest with you.
Well, I was in that press conference at Stamford Bridge when he said that, because we did ask him, because a lot of fans have been asking, why is he picking Amarte ahead of Sionchu? Yeah. And it's just down to personal preference. And he said that he's been watching on the training ground. He's seen the attitude and the commitment. So obviously he's saying that Söyüncü is not as committed as Danny Amate. Now I can understand that. If that's what he's seen, I can understand that he thinks that Amate is more committed and what have you. But I think Söyüncü's a better defender. Amate's not a natural central defender for me.
No.
But that's his decision. That's what he's paid. The money he's paid.
Then it reminds me.
And by the way, can I just dispel a myth? He's not paid £10 million a year. Can I just say that? The amount of times I see that on Twitter,
that's what everybody is saying. Is it
not paid?
He's not the seventh best paid manager in the Premier League. Then
he is the best paid manager in Leicester City's history.
Yes.
But he's not earning £10 million a year, and I can categorically say that. But people, they believe one.
I'm just going to highlight that point to Ant again, because he's. That's one of the backs he throws at me sometimes. He's on 10 million a year, but no. Again, that
Leicester can't afford to pay anybody that sort of fee.
No,
they can't afford to. It's just another level. That is. I mean, I'm sure people will be doing the maths now, but how much that would cost? I mean, the highest earning player at the club, paid player at the club is Jamie. He's on around 120 a week. Casper was on that, and I think that was one of the reasons why. They agreed to the deal for him to go to Nice, because it freed up some wages for them to reinvest in the squad. But no, the club are not at that level that they can pay that sort of money.
No. It does. I mean, I love Nigel Pearson, and I got a chance to speak to him once after the Bournemouth game, because obviously I'm down here at Bournemouth. Totally different off the camera than he was on.
He's a lovely bloke, isn't he? Really,
he is. He is. He took the time. I mean, my son will never forget the fact that he told Sky to hang on because he was talking to us. It was lovely, but he was a stubborn manager.
Oh God, yeah.
How true it is, I don't know. But as soon as he started playing Mark Albrighton, we did the Great Escape. And now. Is that the case? I mean, you say he prefers Amate, but there's 30,000 people at the KP every other week that are saying he's not doing a better job than Söyüncü.
Yeah. I can understand that as well. I watch every game as well. I can see Amate and this is the thing. He looks like a decent player for 60, 70 minutes.
Yeah,
and then he'll have a couple of incidents, 5 minutes, where he completely switches off. I mean, the second goal at Chelsea, I wouldn't lay that completely at his door, but he's not. He just doesn't seem to be aware where Sterling is. Sterling's completely unmarked at the back post. I mean, the build-up has got to be questioned as well. It's not completely Amate's fault. I just don't think he's a top-level central defender. He is a player that should be in your squad to fill in, in emergencies, and
his squad,
that sort of player that they spent £55 million on the previous summer. They need. I mean, that's why Fofana's going to be such a miss, because he is that top centre half.
He is. He like I say, Amate is a squad player. Now, whether Söyüncü, I mean, to me, whether Söyüncü wants to go or not, if he is the better option, he should be played. It's as simple as that.
But Rodgers doesn't see it that way. Rodgers looks at them every day on the training ground, and he sees a more committed player, more athletic player in Amate. But that's his choice. I mean, that's why he's paid. As I said, that's why he's paid to make that decision.
That's why he's not paid 10 million, but why he is paid the million.
I personally would have Söyüncü ahead of him, Amate. Yes.
I think you've got most of the KP in your corner with that one.
Yeah, I personally would, but it's up to him.
Yeah. Just quickly before we go on to one or two questions in the chat. Your next one, you want to see, what? Oh, you put here what's the club hierarchy thinking? I mean, I said at the start of the season that a lot of managers will be looking over the shoulders when we go off for the World Cup break, because you've got a 4-week gap when owners can think we can get a new manager in here. They've got 4 weeks to acclimatise and get used to the players that are still here. And then when everybody comes back, they've got a week before the transfer window opens. And I think that is when we'll probably see most of the, comings and goings in the managerial merry-go-round. Is he? I mean, everybody's starting to say now, well, if he loses this one, he's out. If he loses that one, he's out. I can't say, having lost to Arsenal, they gave us a footballing lesson. And I can't say, having lost to Chelsea, they are teams that we would have probably lost to anyway. But is he? I did a thing the other day with him on countdown, with the countdown clock. Is Top getting a bit twitchy?
I'm not getting that vibe. I'm not getting a vibe that he's in any real danger at the moment because of what he's achieved. And again, I go back to the perceptions and the expectation.
Yeah.
Finishing fifth and eighth, winning an FA Cup, winning the Community Shield, getting to the semi-final of the European competition, all under Brendan Rodgers. I think there are signs, there are worrying signs, though, for the future that need to be addressed. But I think he deserves time to address those concerns in terms of the recruitment, in terms of... and I think he has identified that. And he said it publicly about this squad needs a refresh. But I don't think the club are in the position to be able to do that for him at the moment, financially. We've had obviously losses of 120 million over the last 3 years, which if you have all the permissible losses that you can take out to get rid of financial fair play concerns. But I believe the next financial accounts won't be particularly pretty because of the financial fair play, and the increase in revenue has gone up, but it's not gone up anywhere near like if you do one of those charts. The revenue's going up like this, but wages have gone up even higher because obviously you want to keep your best young talent, and to do that you have to put them on decent contracts. Obviously that increases the wage bill. So I think all this has to be factored in, and it feels like they're at a junction. It feels like this is like a pivotal moment, and I think he deserves to be given a lot more time, in my opinion. I've never been a fan of changing managers all that, because you either believe in what's going on or you don't. I know Peter Taylor's the one that Leicester fans always throw at me.
I can go as far back as Fantastic if you want to.
Yeah, exactly. But I can remember fans wanting Nigel out.
Yeah.
And I defended him, and I got pillared, absolutely mullered for standing by Nigel, especially in the Great Escape season. But I said, well, who else will get better results out of these players, because they all believe in him? That would be my question mark about Brendan when it gets to the point where... Well,
let me show you this. And I'm not saying that Ant is, drinking a lot these days, or that, he should have gone to Specsavers or anything like that. But I strongly disagree with him here, because he's very much like a Brendan out and a Brendan out now fan.
I heard them in Chelsea. I heard them in the tube station in Chelsea. Leicester fans walking down the tube station chanting about Brendan out. Wow. I heard it, and I was quite surprised. But then I'm not. But
there he said he would take Sean Dyche on a short-term contract up until the World Cup.
Sean
to put
Dyche
some fire back into the squad, and he's serious. He's serious.
Sean Dyche is a good manager, but the football people expect Leicester to play. He doesn't play that way. I'm really surprised at that.
Exactly, yeah. I wouldn't. I've got to be honest with you.
But they want a big number 9 and the big ball forwards, and
exactly. Mind you, they might have to score a few goals then. But
I don't know
totally. I don't. There was a time, but that time's a long time ago. I get totally what you're saying about the FFP, but then you wonder how Forest are getting away with it with all their purchases.
But and me, 20 players there on.
Is it 20 now?
In a summer.
I mean, that is
no. There's a difference between the Premier League FFP and the UEFA League FFP rules, and I think Leicester have got, because of their aspirations to qualify for Europe on a regular basis. That is the aspiration. Yeah, I think they've got that in mind now, that they've got to really cut back and make sure that if they do finish in the top 7, because that generally makes you, qualifies you for European football, that they make sure that they can actually compete. But FFP, just to me, it just doesn't seem real to so many clubs. They do whatever they want. And Everton,
exactly. And the fine usually is less than you'd probably get in money for qualifying for Europe. Yeah. But I just want to, before we go on to the questions, one more thing. 2,697 days ago, I know I'm going a long time, or we can say 7 years, 4 months, 18 days, was when Leicester City were last bottom of the Premier League. Mm. That was literally 2 minutes before Jamie Vardy got the 3rd goal against West Brom. We moved up to 18th. I know it's only 4 games in, but we are bottom of the Premier League at the moment.
Yeah.
And we've got some tough fixtures coming up. It's not like we've got, Fulhams and Bournemouths and what have you coming up. So it's going to get, and you said in yours, and I see it's going to get better, probably worse before it gets better. But Ranieri, and let's be honest with you, no manager has more in the bank than Claudio Ranieri did within the Premier League. And yet we'd fallen to 17th and he was sacked. And yet now here we are 20th and we're not sacking Brendan. No. And I just wonder, and I look at, and I say to Arsenal fans, because they're always saying, Arteta this and Arteta that. But Arteta is taking Arsenal the right way. Brendan seems to be taking us the other way.
Yeah, but I think there's lots of different factors in that. As I said, the complications this summer, the finances at the club. We are only 4 games in. You go back to Ranieri, what part of the year, the season were we in then? It was,
February, I think it was February.
Yeah, we were a long way in. I mean, I can remember coming back from Seville when I was in the car coming back from the airport when I got the call to say that he was being sacked, and I had to pull over and deal with that for the paper. But and that came as a huge surprise, because I talk about the collateral in the bank from Rodgers and Ranieri had the ultimate bulb of garlic for that sort of vampire situation. He wasn't going to get bitten on the neck, was he? But he did. No. So it was that was a massive shock. But there are so many different factors at the moment going on at the club. Brendan's done a fantastic job. I think, as I said, I heard the Leicester fans at Chelsea and certain fans voicing their opinion, and they're entitled to it. But I think he's done a great job up to now. I think it's been a really difficult last 12 months in terms of what's gone on with the injuries, situation with recruitment, the finances at the club. I think he needs to be given a little bit more time than he's got now. It is going to get tougher. I'm sorry, fans, but there will be a few more defeats, and I think.
But as I said, with the Leeds comparison earlier, at least we will have a club still at the end of it. Look at Derby, chasing the dream, and sometimes you can.
Under King Power, there'll always be a club. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah,
I know relegation is already a concern for some fans, judging by what I see on comments on my stories and on social media. I'd be amazed if they really were in a relegation fight. But this is a difficult period. It's been a challenging period, as I wrote, and everybody's got to stick together in these sort of times. And as I can see, that there's a number of fans that don't want to stick with Brendan, but I question who would do a better job at the moment.
I think we've
Graham-
got a couple of suggestions further down, and ignoring Sean Dyche totally. Yeah. I mean,
Sean Dyche would probably do a good job in avoiding relegation, but would he move the club on? Would Leicester City be competing for
exactly
top six as they have been?
It's like a Sam Allardyce. He'd come on, he'd keep you up, but he'd be having to keep you up the next season as well. Pochettino, I would love. He's got unfinished business, but would he be
you got to spend some money there, haven't you? Got to spend some money, Pochettino. I mean,
exactly. In fairness, I don't think he would come. Don't get me wrong. In a ideal world where we have monopoly money, but
exactly.
Just very quickly running through some of the questions now. We've been linked with 7 defenders since we may well have sold Fofana. I mean, that's another.
Fire off some names then. Fire off some names. Who are they?
What JB is saying here is Tabsoba. Yeah, I'm terrible at pronunciations. Akanji and Harriet.
Yeah. Tapsoba has been on their radar for a few years. So I believe he was somebody they were looking at and they went for Fofana instead. So he was like the second choice around that time. But now, obviously, he's at another level. This is the thing about Leicester's model. They go for these players before they're really on the radar of the big clubs. And then they go and get them, like Fofana. And Tapsoba would have been, but he would be on their radar now because he's gone to Bayer Leverkusen and done very, very well. So, yeah, he would certainly be one that they were previously interested in. But he would cost a bit of money now.
Yeah.
And who's the other one? Akanji. Dortmund. Yeah. Good player. He's a bit older, though, I think, but needs must at the moment. So they need to bring in some quality. I think Max Lacroix at Wolfsburg is another one. Maxel Lacroix. He's 22, French international, similar to Fofana. He might be somebody that they might look at, but again, everybody knows now that Leicester have got money.
Exactly. God, here we go. Why can't we just sign somebody called Smith and Jones? It'd be so much easier for me. Locke Beatty, is it? 22-year-old Frenchman. I just want to avoid Frenchmen after Nokia, after Mahrez, after Fofana. Can we just avoid Frenchmen, please?
Yeah.
But he's the latest one to be linked, I believe. But I mean, the list is going to go on and on and on, isn't it?
Oh yes, of course.
And if we do actually get anybody, where is it? Somebody just said here, JB, is it true Leicester are looking for investors?
No, not well. Well, if somebody come along and offered them a generous amount, I mean, I know there's been some questions about the ownership because obviously King Power have been hit massively by the pandemic. Yeah, their business is based around tourism, hotels, duty free, and no industry in the world has been hit harder from the pandemic and from that, and it still seems to be recovering. But I'm sure if somebody came along, a company came along or whatever, and wanted to get involved, but be genuine about it, I think Top might look at it. But I still think he's got the club's best interests at heart. I don't think he would want to concede some control or not be the major shareholder. Yeah, I think he'd still be.
King Power bought. They didn't just buy a football club; they bought into the community. And
I think they have.
That's the difference,
And it's very hard, to convince people outside of Leicester that is the case. Even all the money they've invested. Well, not invested, but just given to the community and to the hospitals and the hospices and stuff like that, and the charities all around the county. And I always say, you live in Leicester, you might not be a Leicester fan, you might not be a football fan, but I bet somebody who's benefited from the ownership of Leicester City. And
my first memory of them was they came onto the pitch. Can't remember the game, but his son was cycling around all the grounds for his son's operation. He needed, I think, and he was. They just gave him £25,000 to round it up, and that's my first memory of them. And it's for somebody to come in, and I think for Top to actually say, you can have 20%, whatever. They've got to be something special, and that's the difference.
The thing is with this is that it's been the ownership, the King Power family have been very supportive of the club through thick and thin. This is their thing. So I think the fans need to be a little bit supportive of them. They will recover. I mean, we will all start moving around again, like we used to do. So we've just got to be patient. But it's a tough time at the moment, and they're having a bit of a tough time as well. And
they're investing in, hopefully, if the council pull the finger out, a new ground and new facilities. That's coming.
This is a game, isn't it? This is the reality of the situation at the moment. Everything costs more now. So, you're talking about a development of a stadium, but all the costs of the materials goes up, all the cost of the labour goes up. So suddenly that project that they would have planned for, say it cost 150 million, it's going to cost a lot more now at the moment. So is it wise just to hold off for a year and sit and wait to see if the costs come down? I think so, but I know fans get worried about that. It's like it's a sign of a financial crisis. I think if you were sat
maybe, and it's silly because it is. I mean, I can remember growing up, we never saw a league table for about first 10 games.
No, you didn't, do you?
I think if we were sat mid-table, I don't think there'd be sort of the murmurings that there are because of where we are.
But I understand the murmurings. I understand the murmurings. I do. I understand it. I mean, and this is not just this season. I think the fact that they were in the top four and then fell out at the last week of the season for 2 years running, and then we had all the problems last season, and there was massive mitigation with all the injuries there. But I understand why fans are a little bit impatient this season. Because they should be doing a bit better. They certainly should have done better than against Brentford and Southampton. But it's such early days, and once this transfer window shuts, and if they can bring in a couple of players, I think that might make the world a difference.
Yeah, even if they're loans, Terry's saying here, it's being said that last year's signings were Rodgers. Total decision. If so, isn't Rodgers master of his own downfall with the high wages dished out for any sales? But surely Rodgers doesn't get involved in the contract. Surely that is down to other people within the King Power, within Leicester City Football Club.
Yeah, right. Last summer, yes, some of them were his, like Vestergaard and Bertrand. Some of them weren't. Samare was a pick from the recruitment department, and they basically sold him to Rodgers. Said this kid can do this, that, and the other. And then Brenda's brought him in. Okay, eventually said, yeah, okay. And they brought him in, and he's looked at him, and he's not seen what the recruitment department has seen. So that's that can happen. Yeah. Vestergaard was certainly somebody that Brendan wanted to bring in. And I can remember asking him, I said, he looks like he's going to need a bit of time to settle because he doesn't look like he's that perfect fit for you in terms of pressing into midfield, being able to defend space, that athleticism that we see from Fofana. And initially he said to me, I disagree. I think he's a perfect fit for us. But now, I think quietly he would say, no, he was the wrong fit. So that one is probably on Brendan. Bertrand is just one of those. He's come in and I thought he looked great in the first pre-season.
I was about to say exactly the same thing. I thought, great. We've got Christian Fuchs, got that experience to help Luke Young come through.
Yeah, and that was the role, to come in and be the Christian Fuchs.
Yeah,
but injury after injury after injury. Season. Yeah. I thought he was going to do a job. He could play on the left side of a back three, but then he's just had injury after injury. And now he's had he's going for another operation on his knee. God knows when we're ever going to see him, or if we're ever going to see him again in a Leicester shirt. It's just quite tragic, really. But so that one's been a disaster.
Yeah.
Daka, it was another one from the recruitment department. Have really sold Daka to him, and I think long term, give Daka time, he'll be all right.
Yeah.
And Ademola Lookman was a Brendan one, and he wanted to keep him. But the club haven't had the finances to do it. And I think most Leicester fans would have said, yeah, do that one. 14 million quid, do that one. But they haven't been able to do it.
Talking about, you mentioned Samari there, and we said about Brendan wanting to play players that want to be at the club. Samari got his first start, as did Dennis Pratt. Dennis Pratt, all the fans love Dennis Pratt. And, he's looked and he said, actually, I don't want to go. I want to stop and fight for my place. And up until Chelsea, he got, 20 minutes against Arsenal, which was a bit like throwing a life jacket with no string on it to somebody on the Titanic, isn't it? Yeah. But I've just read it today, and I hope this isn't true, that Torino are coming in for a bid for Pratt.
Well, let's see. I was told there might be another one go out before the transfer window to create more space for incomings. But I think they need Dennis now. Yeah. I mean, if you look at that midfield, the options they've got, I mean, if Tielemans is going to go, if somebody comes in for Tielemans, you can't let Pratt go as well.
No.
You've got to, and you've let Chowdhury go to Watford. You've got to have options in there. You can't. I mean, the squad is already weaker now than it was at the end of last season. So, there's got to be some sensible approach to this final few days. They've got to protect themselves as well. Dennis wanted to go to Torino. He was unhappy with his lack of opportunities previously, but there's a chance he's going to play a lot more now. I mean, I wasn't too sure about him playing him on the right of the attacking three at Chelsea, but what options have you got there? And it was worth having a look at him there, I thought, because they've only got one winger. They've only got Harvey now because they didn't sign Ademola Lookman. So we're interesting to see that in the next few days. I mean, I'd be surprised if Pratt was allowed to go now. He seems to be really up for this season at Leicester, from what I'm told. So let's give him a chance. I mean, who will go before the end of the window? I mean, Tielemans is the obvious one, but there might be Sunchu that goes as well. But they need to cover themselves.
I think we can probably hold out for a little bit more, though, can't we? With having sold Fofana. That's like the big sale, if you like, that we do every year. So do you think we can hold on? We're not. We don't have to.
That was the plan. I don't think they wanted to sell Fofana. They did not want to sell him this summer. They wanted to keep him for another year and say to him, look, give us another year, give it everything you've got. And I know that Brendan dangled the carrot to him of saying, look, if you want to break into that France squad for the World Cup, the best chance you're going to have is playing every week for me and putting yourself in the market, putting yourself on that front page. But obviously he's going to go to Chelsea. And to be honest, I looked at it on Saturday and I thought, I don't blame you to an extent, because if you're playing alongside Thiago, you're going to learn how to be a good centre-half, because that guy is phenomenal. He is a phenomenal centre-back. Oh, if Leicester could sign a player like Thiago, all their problems would be solved. He's that good. Watching him live.
He go back in time and get him when he was sort of younger.
Exactly, and that's what Leicester do. But just watching him live, you watch the way he reads the game and the way he just picks areas, and he can see the game progressing and where the ball's going to go and where the Leicester players are moving. So he knows the danger. I mean, the second half, he was just phenomenal. So playing alongside him, if Fofana's got anything about him, he'll learn from him.
Yeah. I'm going to end on this one because I appreciate it's bank holiday. You've got people around, and I appreciate you giving up the time that you got. So I've got to end on this one. Hassan says, "Would you have Vestergaard over Amate?" you can't get any.
No.
That's the question you've got to end on, isn't it? Really?
No, I wouldn't, because Johnny needs a little bit of athleticism around him. He needs a little bit of he needs some legs around him, some bit of pace. Johnny's great at reading the game, like I just talked about Thiago. He can smell danger, and he can organise people around him. Vestergaard's very experienced, but he's very similar. He's more like Johnny than Amate or Söyüncü. Out of the four of them, Söyüncü is probably the most athletic. So if they are stuck at the end of this transfer window with those four, I would go with Evans and Söyüncü.
Right. There are so many questions in the chat, and I thank everybody for putting them in, but we'd be here till 2 a.m. if we asked them all to you. I think people have just asked about every single player that is registered.
Oh, you can ask the questions. Go for it. I don't mind.
Well, no, you've got family round, so in fairness, I don't want to take you. If anybody has got any questions, they can actually ask you on the Athletic, can't they?
Yes, they can ask on the Q&A, or they can get in touch on Twitter. I'll always gladly answer, as long as they've got their real name on it.
Yeah, exactly. We've all been caught out like that. So, how often do you do the Q&A?
Every game.
Right.
We do a Q&A after every game, and also I think we do one press conferences, so people can get in touch all the time.
Yeah. Just go on to the Athletic, subscribe, search Rob Tanner, like I say, and just get your questions in on the Q&A page. I will let you go and enjoy what is left of your bank holiday evening.
Thank you.
Rob, I really do appreciate you giving up the time. Next time, we must make sure it's not on a bank holiday, because knowing us, we'll be doing something on Boxing Day. No. Thank you very much. All the best to yourself and your family. Really do appreciate you giving up the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Bye-bye. Thank you so much to Rob for coming in. Guys, you've had so many questions, but I do know that Rob has got family round, and it is a bank holiday. We'd both forgotten it was a bank holiday. I'm blaming my age. I can't, of course, say that about Rob. I'm going to say, dude, thankfully that's the last show of the day. We've got this time next week, 7:15 next Monday, we've got Tony Cottee coming on to talk about, he may well mention Everton, he may well mention West Ham, but where did he win his one trophy? Leicester City. So we've got Tony Cottee on next Monday. We're back 9 o'clock this Wednesday, though, with a preview of the Manchester United game. I mean, it's only Manchester United, isn't it? It can't be that bad. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Stay safe. See you soon. Goodbye.
Thanks for watching Leicester Till I Die. This is Chris saying goodbye, and see you next time.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You better like them too, or I'll be back.
San Steno on the pitch, they think it's all over. It is now.